County Heritage Museum. And I will say Will Gravely can really pack a house. So. Well, one or the other. This is our annual meeting, and so we will very quickly run through recognizing volunteers and addressing or introducing the new board members, the new executive committee, and then we will hand it over to Will. So Jacob Bell has been our vice president this past year. He is now our president, and he'll come up and talk about the new executive committee.
Good. We got 2 minutes.
2 minutes? I can try to do that in 2 minutes. So, first off, good afternoon, everyone. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Jake Abel. I am now coming in on June 1st as the president of the new historical, well, not the new historical society, of the new board of directors of the Historical Society. I will introduce Bob Bushnell back there. He will be the new vice president starting June 1st. Our new treasurer will be Miss Virginia King. I'm sure she's somewhere in the room, right there, yes. And then our new secretary, who is our current secretary now, is Andrew Mullins, who's associated with the Boys and Girls Club. Other than that, if you give me a quick second, I'm also going to thank our board of directors right now, and that has been keeping up the good work all year round. That's Grace Anthony, who is the current president, Mr. Bob Bushnell again, Andrew Mullins, Andrew Palmer, Joshua Duncan, Hunter Haskins, Joe Williams, Mike Bass, Steve Kaiser, Virginia King, W.C. Folks, April Haynes, and then Patrick Flynn. And we'd also give a special thank you to Ann Martin, who's currently our fundraising chair. Again, I thank everybody for being here today, and I'm anxious to hear what Will has to say too.
If I get a chance.
All right, thank you. And we're going to recognize volunteers. And Johnny, could you come on up here, please? And if we have any of our other volunteers, come on up. But Johnny, we know you're on this list. Johnny Nolan is here every Wednesday as the host. And Johnny is always a breath of fresh air. He's charming, delightful, funny, fun, and he knows his history. So Johnny, you've had 124 hours. And that's just from the times you fill in the volunteer log. I know you got a lot more that you did not fill the log in. So thank you for Johnny. And volunteering here is a lot of fun. You can come in for a few hours on a regular basis or scattered as you have the opportunity. And just sit, welcome visitors, talk about history, and you can read history or read your own books at the desk in the interim. Now, we are recognizing those who have filled out 100 hours or more on the volunteer log. And like I said, most people don't fill out the volunteer log most times, so this really underestimates what they have done. Michael Sangua Dulce, who is an expert on Hickey's store and on Fort Trial, has 142 hours. Randy Hunley, who is a Martinsville fireman, really came in when the annex was being opened, before it was opened, and he spent hours upon hours cleaning the toys with WD-40, polishing the antiques. And he did that for 197 hours. Dylan Chappell is our young guy on the ladder. He is young college guy, and he is always climbing up there, replacing fire alarm batteries, changing light bulbs, doing all the stuff that we are afraid to do. So thank the good Lord for Dylan. And speaking of thanking the good Lord, you have never heard anyone play piano like Dylan does. Dylan is a self-taught pianist, and he comes in here and throws out some marvelous hymns. He cannot read music, but he can play piano like nobody's business. And lately he has been playing piano for King's Grant, as well as for a few area churches. And then again, in the category of not filling out the volunteer logs, this fellow usually does not fill out the volunteer logs. But he has done so much for us that the volunteer logs that he has filled out shows 818 hours. And that is for Jack Stewart. And miraculously, Jack's wife, Christine, has been able to whisk him away for a vacation in Pennsylvania. So he is resting in a beautiful cabin in the woods. So today our program is by Will Gravely, and Will is right now the guy who you always find doing business in the little post office, which is beside Piedmont Arts. He uses that as his office, as his place to be, as his headquarters, and he is a very major supporter of Piedmont Arts, and he's on the board of that organizations and much else that he does for the community. But please welcome Will to talk about his family's factory business concern, which did start about 100 years ago. If you read the Martins or the Henry Bulletins from 1925, they got started. They decided to start a company in February. So Will, where up there you are. Okay, come on in.
Thank you, Holly. Where'd Mervin go? Mervin, you're not leaving me, are you?
No, I'm all right.
Can you hear me all right?
Yeah.
All right. This is going to be fun. I'm not good at making presentations, so I got to read a lot of them. But this is a story of Ridgeway clocks. It's going to limit it to Ridgeway clocks, a division of Gravely Furniture. I'm going to begin my presentation by giving a brief look at the Gravely family history and early days of Gravely Furniture. In 1744, Joseph Gravely immigrated from Culpeper County to Henry County. He acquired many acres in the Leatherwood area. I think, Martha Frank, you're familiar with that area, aren't you? During the 1800s, the Gravely became world famous as processors of plug chewing tobacco. The founder of this tobacco company was Benjamin F. Gravely. You see that portrait there? That's a chalk portrait of Benjamin F. Gravely. And that would have been about mid-1800s, 1850s. And that particular portrait was in my dad's closet for 35 years, and then it's been in my basement closet for 44 years. I think it's about time for Benjamin to come out of the closet. But I wanted to spend some time on that because I'd like to donate this to Mervin. Mervin's been a lot to this area, a lot to our family, and I can't think of a better home. You don't want it, you say? How much you give me for it? Anyway, Benjamin had two sons. Let me figure out which I'm supposed to do. One of them was Henry Clay Gravely. And you wouldn't know him because he died before most of you were born, but he used to have a house right at the end of Cleveland Avenue, right on East Church Street, a big old house. And anyway, Henry Clay Gravely continued operating Benjamin F. Gravely and Sons Tobacco after his father died. H.C. Gravely had 4 sons. 2 of them were Richard and Benjamin. That's Richard Pleasant. He was my grandfather. And that was his brother Benjamin. They continued to help their father in the tobacco industry in Leatherwood. In 1906, Benjamin F. Gravely and Sons sold out to American Tobacco Company and moved from Leatherwood to Martinsville. The end was in sight for independent tobacco processors. In 1907, R.P. Gravely and Benjamin F. Gravely formed a partnership and opened a modest shop building the foot. I hate wearing glasses, but I got to. Should have worn a monocle, right? How's that? I can read it now. 1907, RP and Benjamin F. Gravely formed a partnership and opened a modest shop building at the foot of Leicester Street, manufacturing cross arms on the telephone and telegraph poles and the threaded rods that held the glass insulator pins. These were made of plentiful, tough, insect-resistant locust trees, which were plentiful in this area. For nearly 20 years, Benjamin and R.P. Gravely Company was prospered. But in the early 20s, there were warning signals. Ceramic insulators were coming into use, bringing with them iron and steel cross arms and metal pins. Plus, more and more phone lines are being placed now underground. You can ride along the railroad track up in Fieldale, and you'll see some of the old cross arms and glass insulator pins that were made by Benjamin F. Gravely back in 1906 to 1926. Don't take them. Realizing he was in a waning business, Richard Gravely set out to find a new means of livelihood. He was a man of originality. Therefore, he did not wish to duplicate anything he had previously done. Plus, he wanted to stay in the Martinsville area, where he had already put down deep roots, and I think by that time he had about 5 or 6 kids. He was among the original directors founding a new bank, Piedmont Trust. He was a part of a group that was instrumental in getting William Letcher Pannell to leave North Carolina and bring the knitting industry to Martinsville. He witnessed the beginning of several other industries in Martinsville. Among these were a number of furniture companies, including Bassett, American, Stanley, and Hooker Bassett. Each of these companies were manufacturing case goods, such as bedroom and dining room suites. Richard Gravely had no desire to compete or copy with, he had no desire to copy or compete with these furniture giants, but came up with a different phase of the industry. No one in the entire Southeast was exclusively producing novelty furniture, later called occasional furniture. That consisted of coffee tables, end tables, lamp tables, benches, bookcases, small consoles, etc. Research of the national market indicate this field was wide open, provided the product was promotional, of quality material and construction, and most importantly, of a pleasing design. The novelty furniture this novelty furniture would have an opportunity to design pieces to conform with any suite or style of furniture. So if Bassett had a bedroom group, we could design little pieces to go with it, so on and so forth. There were other advantages. Occasional pieces of furniture would be relatively easy to make. Could be KD, so they could be packaged and fitted in between the larger pieces of furniture being shipped by local case good manufacturers. This would vastly reduce shipping costs. Lost my place already. Salesmen of larger case good manufacturers in the area could carry this non-competing line of furniture, solving the problem of a separate sales force. Convinced that all the factors were favorable, Mr. Gravely discussed the details with his friend and family and decided to go ahead. March 4th, 1926, the Gravely Novelty Furniture Company was officially organized. Richard P. Gravely Sr., that's bigger, let's go back a little bit, was officially organized. Richard P. Gravely Sr. was president and treasurer. J. Clive Hooker Sr., founder of Hooker Furniture, was first vice president. Reeves Brown Sr. was second vice president, and Joe Shoemate was acting secretary. Confidence of this new venture was apparent in the initial stock subscription. Mr. Gravely calculated the company should be capitalized at $100,000. This amount, plus an oversubscription of another $100,000, was raised locally in less than 48 hours. Success was immediate. The prosperity of Gravely Novelty Furniture Company in the first 3 years of its existence prompted similar ventures in the area, including Martinsville Novelty, Morris Novelty, which was later acquired by Pulaski Furniture Company. The Depression of 1929 turned out to be a real test for Gravely Novelty as well as for all local business enterprises. Gravely suffered during that period but managed to continue a profitable operation. Wages were reduced, but working times were staggered so that the employees managed at least a few days' work during these real tough times. During 1933, conditions got better and Gravely Novelty Company began to recoup rapidly. In 1935, Mr. Gravely brought his son Richard Jr. into the business. One of his first efforts was to institute a system of cost accounting. He seemed to generate new energy in the company, and the company thrived. In 1942, J.B. Shoemate Sr., the original secretary and director, withdrew from the company to take over Coleman Furniture of Pulaski. Ralph Piles, what a great man he was. Ralph Piles, formerly with the sales department of W.M. Bassett Furniture Company, was selected to fill the vacancy. This team successfully guided the company through the difficult years of World War II with all the restrictions, priorities, and shortages and war contracts. In 1945, a second son, Harry C. Gravely, he never had a period behind the C. They don't know why, but you can look at his gravestone, you can look at anything, and those just see. Harry C. Gravely, my father, joined the company. His brother Richard was now a VP with responsibilities of growing plant mounting daily. Harry was needed in the study and control of production cost. His first assignment was to deliver and apply methods, time and motion studies instituted by his brother Richard. Over the next 10 years, a number of factories devoted to manufacturing casual furniture sprang up in the South. One of these was Ridgeway Furniture Manufacturing Company, and it was purchased by Gravely Novelty Company in 1947. The Ridgeway factory had excellent and more modern facilities to keep the Ridgeway factory had excellent and more modern facilities to help the Gravely production in Martinsville. With the workload increasing, my dad took over the purchasing of materials along with sales and statistical assignments. In 1948, my dad was elected as director of the company. Also in 1948, Richard Jr. organized the Henry County Plywood Company, a business totally separated from the Furniture Corporation, but he supplied us with a lot of veneers. At this time, Richard Jr. recognized another golden opportunity for Gravely. The big boom in TVs, we're talking about late 40s, early 50s, was on, and the manufacturers needed fast mass production of tables and bases to place their TV sets. Gravely manufactured tens of thousands of these tables for such companies as Philco, RCA, Sylvania, Zenith, Magnavox, and GE. Gravely Furniture at this time had grown to about 400 employees in both locations. That's Ridgeway and Martinsville. In 1954, Harry Gravely became second VP. He was now plant manager at the Martinsville location. In 1956, Richard P. Gravely stepped down as president of the company and was elected chairman of the board. This is a picture of his retirement party. He was given a shortwave radio that he loved and a gold watch. Richard P. Gravely Jr. had succeeded his father in the presidency of the company in 1956, and Harry Gravely continued as VP. Also in 1956, the company changed from Gravely Novelty Furniture Company to Gravely Furniture Company Incorporated. In 1957, Gravely acquired the Withfield Chair Company in Withfield, Virginia, and the Worth Furniture Company of Asheboro, North Carolina. By the late 50s, the Gravely Martinsville facilities were becoming obsolete for the manufacture of furniture items in public demand. The operations of two plants were determined to be too costly and inefficient. By this time, many large case good manufacturers had also entered into the novelty furniture business. They knew a good thing when they saw it. Small occasional furniture factories were closing by the dozen. In the fall of 1960, Richard Gravely recommended that the Martinsville plant be closed and all manufacturing operations be moved to Ridgeway Furniture Company, or the Ridgeway facility. Later it was decided to terminate operations at the Withfield plant. Limited work was started up again in the Martinsville plant. The workforce had gradually reduced to 120 in Ridgeway and 90 in Martinsville. A decision was then made to take the best 120 employees and move them all to Ridgeway. That's about when you joined, wasn't it, Sam?
What?
That was about when you joined, right? 1957, is that right? Yeah. In December 1960, after 35 years of uninterrupted, the Martinsville plant closed for good. It's going to be lofts now. I think that's what they're going to be doing. They'll be big apartments down there. This was a real low point. Gravely resourcefulness was again had to be demonstrated. Now for all you've been patiently waiting for. This was the introduction of a new product line. Finely crafted floor clocks. This is going to be hard to follow, but you need to hear it. The story goes that in February 1959, our own Dan Green of Globin's department store called Richard Gravely Jr. to follow up on a conversation he had had with Harry Gravely, my father, suggesting we go into manufacturing grandfather clocks. Danny said his salesman, or a jobber for novelties, silverware, and miscellaneous housewares, had approached him. Said he had an inventory of clock movements and was looking for a source of wooden clock cases. Upon Harry's request, Richard pursued the matter further. Danny Green provided Richard with the name of Friedman, plus a little background information. He called Friedman in New York City and discussed his requirements. Not being very communicative, Friedman was asked to visit Ridgeway and bring drawing, sample movements, and other details. In April 1959, he met with Richard and Harry in Ridgeway. This is April 1959. Friedman said he was an importer of clock movements and could supply them with whatever quantity needed. A sample movement and case was shipped to Ridgeway. The case was re-engineered and redesigned. Samples were designed and manufactured and priced out with the cost of a movement and dial Friedman had given the company. More movements were being shipped, so 24 more cases were completed in July of 1959. I don't know what this next slide is, but we won't go there yet. But after the completion of the cases, the cases were designed mostly by my uncle Richard, but he worked with a designer down in North Carolina called Dudley Moore. And they came up with these designs. But anyway, after the completion of the cases, Harry tried for over 4 months to get the promised movements and dials from Friedman. It turns out there was no inventory, and Friedman could not get any cooperation from the producer in Germany. Gravely obtains the names of the U.S. representative for Ergos movements manufactured in Germany. He was Stephen Reich. An order for 30 sample movements and dials was placed with the manufacturer. 3 more months went by, and still no dials or movements. Freeman said all things had been worked out with Rice, Stephen Rice, and the samples were on the way. No samples ever arrived or were ordered. February 1960, Richard Gravely goes to Germany to meet with ergos to see if they were able to supply the movements and dials. All details were worked out, samples arrived, the sample clocks were completed, movements and dials were installed, photographed, and offered for sale in June 1960 at the New York Furniture Market. Orders for several hundred clocks was placed with the top department store, which was Macy's, and jewelry stores across the country. Shipments began late August. August 1960. In December, at the very same time the Martinsville plant was being closed to operation, the clock line was offered to company sales force. Priced at under $200, the clocks became very popular overnight. September 1, 1961, Richard Gravely Jr. resigns as president of Gravely Furniture, devoted full-time to Henry County Plywood Company, but remained a director on the board, a Gravely board. Harry Gravely is elected president the same day. Recognized the importance of the clock line, he concentrated his efforts on clocks, and in 1961, Ridgeway Furniture Division already become the largest producer of clocks in the United States, and likely the world at that time. So it didn't take but a year. Clocks were very profitable also. We made profit on the cases, we made profit on the dials, we made profit on the movements. The entry into the field meant a difference between Gravely Furniture's growth and success or disappearing from the scene through failure, sale, or merger. In 1962, Richard P. Gravely dies at the age of 77. Orders for clocks and furniture continued to grow. It would now be necessary to plan either for an expansion at Ridgeway or a major overhaul at the plant closed Martinsville facilities. The problem was resolved in 1964, now I found it, with the sale of the Martinsville plant to Virginia Furniture Company. All right, let's see what's next one. Save that for last.
And it didn't work.
It didn't work. Gravely Furniture had drawn up plans for a new plant in Ridgeway before the sale of the Martinsville plant, and construction was begun in early 1965. Disaster was nearly averted on September 27, 1965, when a fire destroyed the finishing, shipping, and warehousing section of the original Ridgeway plant. In the summer of 1966, construction was completed on a new 250,000 square foot plant built around and over the foundation of the Ridgeway plant. It was termed as the most modern and layout and equipment of any in the industry. What else we got here? This is my dad and my Uncle Frank. And a lot of Gravely's working for that company. But this was the picture of the new plant that was being constructed. The office was up on the hill. The old plant, well, I can't do it. The office was up on the hill, came down the plant, and the old plant was still back in the back. In 1972, Gravely acquired a second plant in Greensboro, North Carolina, to become Gravely Furniture Company of North Carolina to help in the ever-increasing demands for Ridgeway clocks. That was a short-lived situation because of the union, is that correct?
Roger Craig was the plant manager at that time.
Yeah, but anyway, we had a situation where a union got up and they figured that'd be the way to get in touch with, get the union, and Gravely would be to set up the union at the plant in North Carolina. And they went on and on and on, and finally came to my dad and said, well, you know, it ain't gonna happen. And I think Lee Houston, who was our plant manager, was sent down to North Carolina, and he was instructed to pay the Christmas bonuses and checks and go through all sorts of positive hoopla. And the final thing he says, and effective next week, we will be shut down for good. The union tried to come back, but they had waited 3 days longer than they should have to have filed some kind of paperwork anyway. It was avoided. That was a nightmare. I remember going through that. Turns out that they had people watching. They had people watching my brother. They had people watching me. They had people watching my dad. Every move, they were looking for something they could pin on us. Whew. It was hard. Now in 1972 or 73. I was hired as a sales representative in New England. I lived in New Hampshire, a little town called Derry, New Hampshire, which was south of Manchester, New Hampshire, and traveled Maine, Vermont, New Hampshire, and eastern Massachusetts. And in 1972, my dad had an accident while at a Southern Furniture Manufacturers Association meeting in Hot Springs. His accident had confined him to a wheelchair for the rest of his life. That didn't stop him. In 1974, Gravely Furniture adds a computer division headed by H. Clay Gravely. So, here we go. This is where my presentation is going to ramble, but we will eventually get everything done, I assure you. So you've seen that before, you've seen that before, you've seen that before. These are the new employees. This is the new plant and a photograph of the employee. You remember that, Sam, when you were in that photograph?
I didn't come there until late 72.
We were doing real good till you got there, right?
I came there September 72.
Okay. Then we, I don't know how many employees we had, but we had right many. That's a good picture of them. And then we had our new office building. Hey, I think Frith Construction built all that, right, Jerry? There you go. This is the interior of the office. We had offices on the outside, and we had the secretary's pool in the center. And everything was, there were no computers there. Everything was, you pull a file out, you'd have to get the information out and put it back in the file. I don't know how we did it, or they did it. Whoop, whoop. This is a board of directors in 1962. You've got Richard Gravely on the right, Ralph Rudder, who is our vice president of manufacturing. That was Morgan Simmons, the founder of American Harmon, standing up. There's my dad next to him. That was Dick Broaddus Sr. That was Benjamin Gravely, Ralph Piles, and Jim Pearl. I'll talk a little bit more about Jim Pearl. This is a clock setup room. Back in the early 60s, we used to test. We'd test them for 24 hours, wouldn't we? We'd set them up, test them for 24 hours, and adjust and trim them so they keep as good or accurate time as possible. Box them up and ship them. There you
That
go.
was the thing that
What?
Every clock that was shipped out was tested before it went out.
Yeah. So you walk into a room, I think it's about this size, wasn't it? And there'd be rows and rows of grandfather clocks working. You think the one clock ticks, makes a lot of noise. You should have heard that room. Yeah, you should have heard that room.
Which clock is that, Will?
I think that's the 220.
220 Lincoln, yeah.
Cherry finish. You're not going to pull the wool over my eyes. But it was amazing how much work we had to do to each movement, and I'll tell you a quick story. Gail didn't know about this until it showed up, but I was on Marketplace and I saw this clock, and she wanted $75 for it. I said, I'll give her a call. So I said, see, you got a clock for $75? She said, yeah. Says, I'd like it. Can I come and see it? She said, well, it's not really for sale yet. It's going to be an auction tomorrow. You can come tomorrow. And I said, no. Can I come tonight? I'm not going to be there. My husband will be there. I said, that's fine. I'll bring some money. I'd like to see the clock. And I went down and walked in, and there it was. It was gorgeous. It was a 122 Lady Norfolk. It was one of the first 500 clocks we ever made. And I felt real bad. I talked her down to $65. But I brought it back and oiled it, cleaned it. It's sitting in my dining room, and I wouldn't give $1 million. I wouldn't take $1 million for it. But anyway, where was I?
How long ago was that?
Huh?
How long ago was that? That you bought this?
I bought it, about a year ago, year and a half ago? If you look on, not to downplay, but it's sort of what's happened to this business, you can find gorgeous grandfather clocks on Marketplace for $100, $200, $300, $400. Nobody wants them. They'd rather have a big screen TV. But anyway, there you go. We are in charge now. My brother on the left started in data processing, went up into computers and data processing, went up into quality control, became VP, and then eventually became president. I started out as a sales rep, stayed a sales rep, stayed a sales rep, and then came back, got married, moved up to the ranks, and became VP of sales and marketing. And my dad was the president for many years, and he retired and became the chairman. This is Jim Pearl. Jim Pearl was the sales manager of Worth Furniture, which was down in Asheboro, North Carolina. He was a genius. When we bought Worth, he was something that came along to Gravely Furniture, and we're glad we did. He was a marketing genius. He's the one that put together why people should want grandfather clocks. We don't want you to sell them in jewelry stores because you don't sell them anymore. We want them to be in furniture stores. Therefore, we got to come up with furniture designs, blah, 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 blah. Jim was also the son of Saul Pearl, who was our sales representative in New York. And Saul is the gentleman who sold the clocks to Macy's. And so Jim, so we had a lot of years with Jim. This is the first Ridgeway clocks. And what you'll notice is a common carcass. It's a common case. You've got, everything's about the same height. You got a difference in a base panel, or maybe a shape here, or a panel there, but they were all the same clock. So we had 11 clocks available in 4 different movements in 3 different finishes. That's 11 times 3 times 4. That's how many clock styles we had. And those were good old days. And then we ventured out into other sort of styles. We got into granddaughter clocks, curio clocks, contemporary clocks, with painted finishes. It just took off. This is where I'm gonna really jumble around, but that's all right, you'll live with me. The finest clocks we ever made were probably the last clocks we ever made. My brother was very instrumental in designing clocks and working with clocks. My job was to market them and sell them. This was our most successful grandfather clock in that it sold out before it went on sale. We made 1,000 of them, and we allocated them to the sales rep. And they were introduced to the market, and your mother Crystal gave a presentation that's
Incredible.
but they sold them all. We had our first $1 million market. I think they were $1,200 a piece,
Yes.
and we sold all 1,000 of them at that market. So and plus we sold a lot. That brought so much excitement. We sold a lot. We had a 1.6 or 1.7 million market. That was good. The last clock last limited edition we did was the Liberty. That was to celebrate the Statue of Liberty. I think this was in 1984, and this was incredible. Again, we made 1,000 of them. We didn't sell them all in one day, but we did sell them. And then we also had other limited editions between 1976 and 1984. We had a George Washington. We had the Constitution. And our most famous, as far as I'm concerned, was the Yorktown. We had a Yorktown limited edition. Little side story on that was, I don't know how many people have ever used to eat at Nick's Seafood in Norfolk. That was, huh? Well, Yorktown, excuse me, Yorktown. Got the damn neighbor corrected me. The Nick's Seafood was owned by the Matthews family. Mary Matthews, we became very familiar with because she bought 4 Yorktowns. One of them for her home, one of them for the restaurant, one of them for the Yorktown Visitor Center, and one to put on the Yorktown aircraft carrier. We had no trouble with the one in the restaurant, the one in our home, or the one in the visitor center. But the motion of the ship prevented the clock from working. So I remember getting a phone call. Will, hey, this is Mary. I said, hey Mary, how you doing? She says, I'm fine. We got a problem. I said, well, the clock won't work. I said, which one? The one on the Yorktown ship. What's the matter with it? I guess the motion prevents it from working. That makes sense. Is there anything we could do? So we put an electric movement in it that you could plug into the wall and have the weights hanging there and the pendulum not moving, but electric movement was put in to keep the time going, and they were tickled pink. I never had to pay for another meal at the place. Unfortunately, they're not with us anymore. They're closed down. Whoop. I'll get to that one later. I wish I'd organized this better, but I got a lot more. But I'm going to get into the 4 P's section. I got product placement, promotion, and people. But limited editions you saw. We also did special stuff, like we work with Franklin Mint. We used to make, Franklin Mint, if you were familiar, made these silver coins, and they had to have a place to display them. So we made display cases for them and marketed them, and they sold a lot of them. And we also did a mantle clock for them. Ethan Allen, we manufactured all the clocks for Ethan Allen. They took variations of our style, so they wouldn't have to redesign them, of course. But that was a lot of fun, because I used to go up to Ethan Allen's headquarters, which was in Danbury, Connecticut, and I'd meet with Nat Ansell, the founder of Ethan Allen. He was such a gentleman. And I also got to meet Farouk Kathwarthy, who's now the president and the chairman of the board of Ethan Allen, and still today. Also, we manufactured for Coca-Cola. We were one of the first original 8 licensees of Coca-Cola. And we did reproductions of their wall clocks and made them more affordable. And their bottling companies and stuff like that, we used them to give away. Plus, they were available in retail trade. We did limited edition clocks for direct mail. We worked with American Express, and we did think we did a bicentennial design for them, and they sold a lot of them. Placement was, there a lot of things are important. Placement was really important. And we not only went to department stores, which did a lot of business, but we focused primarily on full furniture stores and clock shops. Furniture stores, we used to sell people like Nebraska Furniture Mart. They were bought out by Berkshire Hathaway. They were so successful that they bought out by Berkshire Hathaway. Grand Home Furnishings in Roanoke used to sell it. Haverty's and Macy's. And of course, American TV. You remember them, don't you? Sitting there with a hat on. He's not a gentleman. He always leaves his hat on. But we went up to American TV to work an order out for a program they wanted to do. They were setting up promotion where with every living room group you buy, you get a free grandfather clock. With every dining room group you buy, you get a free grandfather clock. With every bedroom group, you get a free grandfather clock. We sat down, I think, it was about a 4-hour meeting, and we came up with the numbers, and we were handshake, and
$1 million order.
yeah. We called up Clay, who was the president, of Clay. This worked out bigger than we thought. $1 million, about 700 and some clocks, wasn't it? It's going to work out bigger. It's going to take us a lot of time to write the orders. It may take us 2 or 3 days to get back with it. As soon as we left, he said, "That's fine. You take it as long as you can. We'll take it as long as necessary." We went out. We wrote up one order. Didn't fill it in, but we made Xerox copies of it. Just applied different purchase order numbers. But that was the type of stuff you could do. And department stores, we sold Macy's, we sold Gimbels, we sold Wanamakers, we sold Strawberries and Clothiers. By that time, I was living in St. Louis, and I sold Famous Bar department stores and a department store called Stick, Spare, and Fuller. And it was great.
Good old days.
Oh, it was. Jewelry stores, we used to sell, we'd sell one jewelry store and have a few on display, and they'd sell a few special or something like that. But I had a customer in Joplin, Missouri called Newton Jewelers, and the buyer was Bunny Newton. I'll never will forget him. I went down and had lunch with him one day, and he said, "We got to go in the clock business." I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "Yeah, I want to set up a 12 clock gallery. I want you to pick out the 12 clocks." I said, "Okay." In a matter of 2 years, he was gone from 12 to 24 different clocks. He brought in Howard Miller, who was one of our competitors, and Hershey, and he was doing more business than shake a stick. His store was destroyed several years ago when they had that big tornado come through. But we also had miscellaneous accounts. We had a store by the name of Melonchucks. I think he was in Detroit, and he sold bicycles, tennis shoes, and grandfather clocks.
J.C. Penney.
Huh?
J.C.
Oh, J.C. Penney. Oh, I could go on. J.C. Penney. Oh yeah, J.C. Penney. I traveled all over the United States setting up the J.C. Penney stores. And Sears too, we sell Sears too. And I traveled all over. That's the only time I've been to Idaho was to call on Sears stores to help train the salespeople. Whew. But then last but not least were clock shops. They were few and far between back when we first started, but they grew and they grew. And we had one clock shop in Vienna, and we had the Village Clock Shop, which was owned by one of our representatives. That's okay.
And the big one in Richmond.
Huh?
And the one in Richmond.
Oh yeah, Virginia. Yeah, they were all over, but they were in Houston, Chicago Clock Company, and mostly the clock companies were the ones that sold them in the West Coast. But Village Clock Shops was unusual in that he opened up his, every Memorial weekend was the Indianapolis 500. Sonny would buy 50 tickets for his friends and business people to come up to the Speedway, and he'd get t-shirts planted, and they'd all be bright colors. They'd be like your bright yellow or purple or pink, so that he was in the third corner. And so they'd always have fourth corner, so when the cars would come around the third corner, the cameras would be zeroed in, and they'd see us, a whole section of us, they knew it was a village clock shop. But what was fun was after that, the next day, we used to have the biggest clock sale. And there was a salesman by the name of Larry Myler, and Sonny and myself. I think we sold, 57 clocks
57 grandpa, one day.
one day. Okay, now I can go back to some of my slides now. We were a very promotional company. We did 15.8% of our entire budget was spent on sales and marketing. We advertised all the time, and when business got bad, we advertised even more. This is a particular drawing for the winner of a granddaughter clock. That's my younger sister Kelly. I think she was about 10 years old, and I forget what the occasion was, but she was drawing the winner of the granddaughter clock. So I had my dad, my granddad, and my sister there. Get back to Jim Pearl. He set up a marketing program whereby we advertised, we set up a booth in the New York World's Fair in 1965. We had on display 11 grandfather clocks. This actual photograph was taken from the showroom. We had various styles, various finishes, various movements. And in the lower left-hand corner is a picture of the exhibit hall that we displayed in. It was very successful.
What year?
1965. This is the World's Fair hang tag that we had, and each clock that was sent that next year was considered a World's Fair collection, which was selected mostly from the early styles we had, but very successful marketing. I remember going to New York, and I stayed in the Continental Hotel, which is no longer a hotel up there, and we eating in a restaurant, and Mother says, "You gotta go up the back of the steps." I said, "Why?" She said, "You see these railings, they got cameos in them, and they're going to be closing this hotel down. See if you can get any cameos out." But I remember, I got a knife and tried to get them out. They wouldn't come out. But I remember it cost me 15 cents to get from New York to the World's Fair. We got into advertising. We had a great ad agency, an ad agency called Long, Hames & Carr out of Winston-Salem. And we worked with a true gentleman, Austin Carr. Got nothing but fond memories of him. But he had a way of, selecting the magazines we went in and selecting the ads and whatever. These were ads that were very small. They were 1 1/4 by 1 column that went into the Smithsonian magazine, went into National Geographic, went into a lot of other magazines along that line. And you could read maybe send 25 cents today for a complete I didn't do that, did I? Send 25 cents today for a complete catalog of the story of clocks, other literature, Wright Ridgeway Division of Gravity Furniture Company. We made a fortune. And it started pouring in. We poured in so much we put another ad out, and they kept coming in. This is Will Graff's success here. In 1974, I moved back to Martinsville to help my father in his rehabilitation. I moved from England back to Martinsville and was living with Mom and Dad, and he said, and then Austin Carr, he said, we're going to do an ad up in New York. We want Will to go up there and help us. I said, I'd be glad to. If you hadn't heard of Harold Krieger advertising, you need to look it up. He was the best advertising photography, ever. He did Mercedes. He did everything. And we worked with him. We tied up his studio for 3 days. And I had to set up all the clocks. I had to go out with him and pick up all the accessories he needed, and riding around Manhattan in a cab and picked up stuff and came back and set the clocks up for a shoot and get them right, and photographed. We also did another setting. So you can see the different styles, different finishes, different colors, different everything. But I got my you-know-what shoot out when I got back because I didn't put the finial on the clock, and they had to draw it in. The finial. The Oriental clock, they had to draw the finial in. And he said that cost about $3,000 to draw that in.
Santiba.
Huh?
The Santiba.
That's right. You know your clocks, don't you? But Longhampton Car sent me up there to do that. We did that, and it was, by the time I arrived, they were loading a Mercedes. It was a 2-door coupe into a truck. The shoot was over. By the time our shoot was over, I hate to say it, they were starting to do a bra ad. I had to stay an extra day. But I got to stay in the studio apartment, 235 East 32nd Street, which was the place where he passed away. He had a lot of other retail, a lot of other properties in New York that are worth a fortune, but that's where he lived, was at 235 East 32nd Street. Look up Harold Krieger, you'll be amazed what he did. And it started with Ridgeway almost. Here's another national ad that was worked up by Longhampton Car. This is where we started to expand more into different larger sizes. And good assortment here. And you can see that we went from a 25-cent brochure to a free brochure. Ooh, we had Bassett Printing running crazy to print those for us.
Wow.
More ads. How to say Christmas to someone every hour on the hour. 365 days a year. Then we had a Ridgeway reflector. I forget where that was taken. A Ridgeway reflects your taste. It doesn't dictate it. And clever ads. We even went to some funny ones. Every family should have a Ridgeway grandfather. And we also had special times where we had an annual sale every summer. And the dealers were given 10% off if they bought 12 clocks. And we'd give them a little advertising allowance, and they'd do it. We also, Christmas presents from Christmas past. We had a wall of mail program, but our most of our money was made with clocks. And a free brochure, again, it was free, not a quarter, it was free. This is a trade ad we ran, and we featured the Ridgeway clocks are homemade. Ridgeway, Virginia is the home of some of the most talented craftsmen in the world. The home of Ridgeway clocks. That was the Ridgeway train station, and that is Ken Klopp. That's Ken Klopp's wife, Wade. But anyway, then unfortunately that train station burned down. We came out with a clock, and Jeff, you and Sonny will appreciate this. We came out with a clock that sort of deceived people. Hand carving costs a lot, and usually makes it more expensive. We worked with a company called Westwood. It was a composite made of wood and chemicals and stuff, but it would take a finish. So we got this made of Westwood, the columns made of Westwood, and the crown made of Westwood, and came out with a clock that our Texas rep went crazy. That was the fastest moving grandmother in America. We sold thousands of them. We ran weeks of production with that clock. Remember, Sam?
What was the name of it?
Granada, 167. But
The good old days.
oh, it really was. But to get our clocks out there, we had to do things that a lot of companies didn't have to do, but they do now. But we had showrooms. We had a showroom in New York, Chicago, San Francisco, Dallas, Atlanta, Minneapolis, and High Point. And we had also a satellite showroom in Jamestown, New York, which was at one time a big furniture area. But let's see what else we got here. This is a picture of the Ridgeway's owner packet. These are all the things that used to come in the clocks. We'd have an important thing, tell them how to, the yellow one was an important thing on how to adjust the movement. You had a warranty. You had a parts list. You had something most important, an extra suspension spring. You don't know how much that is worth today. People have a problem with their clock and won't work. It's because of a 25-cent suspension spring. They'll pay a clock service man $125 to set it up. And it's 25 cents. But the trouble is you can't find them. And if you do find them, it might not be the right one. It may go into a different movement. But anyway, this is the type that was all packed in the important envelope, went to the bottom of the clock, and shipped out with the clock. Here's some more styles we had. As you can see, we got kind of fancy. The lower right-hand corner is the fastest moving grandmother in America. We got a granddaughter clock in red. All right, what was this clock, Sonny? What was this clock?
Oliver Cromwell,
What was the number?
163.
Good. I tell you. One of our proudest achievements was to make grandfather clocks the most desired trophy in NASCAR. This is a picture of, we used to have the race car drivers come down to Ridgeway to eat lunch with us.
Who was it?
What?
Who came and ate lunch?
The race car drivers.
All of them?
Well, several of them did. The ones that were smart did. But anyway, because they got a free lunch. But anyway, from this picture, you can see the meeting with my dad and Clay Earls, who was the owner of the track then. And that's who he's shaking hands with in the picture on the right. And in the lower left-hand corner of the picture on the right is Richard Petty.
Wow.
I think it's Cale Yarborough right there. Well, I'll do that. How do I get it back on? Click exit. Where's the exit? Where's the exit? It doesn't make any difference. I don't need it anymore. Huh? No, I don't have pictures for the rest of the thing. But you got to see the picture of Clay Earls and my dad shaking hands, and it was that's been a lasting. That's all right. I don't need it. That's been a lasting relationship, and now that Howard Miller Clock Company just went out of business, they kept the Ridgeway name, and we used to believe, we had a philosophy, there was no such thing as competition, just good customers. They were good competition. And
Will, do you have any idea who owns the name Ridgeway Clocks now? I know it's Howard Miller still. I know they're gone, but who owns the name Ridgeway Clocks? Okay.
you're not going to get it, know that. There are some lawyers looking into it. Yes?
What was the first year the clock was given at the Speedway?
1964. I don't know. It wasn't Richard Petty. Who was it? No, it wasn't Richard Petty. We'll think of it. I know when Richard Petty.
They had it the other day for the race, they called it.
I know. I've got a whole.
I went blind.
But you know, when Richard Petty won, he was so excited, he bought 7 more to give to his crew, pit crew, and stuff like that. Then he went on to win 11 more races.
Well, Fred Lorenzo.
Fred Lorenzo was the first winner.
Yeah.
But,
Fred Lorenzo won the first.
Yeah, but every now and then I run into Richard Petty. I don't go to races anymore, but the last time I was there, I parked my car right next to him. And he pulled out and he said, "Hey, TikTok guy." He knows me as the TikTok guy. But anyway, the final thing I'm going to go over are people. We worked with the finest movement and dial manufacturers. We started with Ergos. They made a great movement. We started with Yeckley, who is a dial manufacturer. We worked with Hermley. Hermley, we did so much business with Hermley, they built a manufacturing facility in Amherst, Virginia, just to accommodate us. That we didn't have to work with the fluctuation of the German mark. Yeckley, Hermley, there were some great people there. Ottmeyer and Deedy.
Senator.
Oh, we worked briefly with Keenager. I didn't like them. I know, but I'm just, my speech is just going to talk about people I like. I have the privilege. But anyway, Ottmeyer and Deedy, and Stephen and Claire Rice, and they were fine people, and we did real well with them. Other suppliers like Shepherd Furniture Company and our glass suppliers, we couldn't have done without. Shepherd, I was hoping Eddie Shepherd would be here, but we worked with him years. He made parts for us. He made complete cabinets for us, and his dad was just remarkable. Like I said, the designers, Otto and Moore, Dudley Moore, he's no longer with us, but I got to meet with him about 4 years ago in his office down in High Point. And he was the designer. Dudley Moore Jr. is now the chief designer, but his dad used to sit in on the meetings, and they were the designers for Vaughn Bassett. And they were having a meeting there, and I walked in, and the secretary went in and says, "Will Gravely's here to see Dudley." And I said, "Don't interrupt. He got up, came out, and he says, we'll meet again. I got to talk to this guy." He was so glad to see me. He came up with the first designs. He worked with Uncle Richard with the first designs. And he didn't get along with Jim Pearl, but he got along with Ralph Piles and my dad, and went down there and he pulled out all the original drawings. He had all the original drawings of all the clocks. And I brought them home to look at them, see which ones I wanted. What was I going to do with them? Wallpaper the house with it?
I got more of them.
Oh, you do? Okay, good. No, thank you. But Norman Heckler was the designer we went to after Dudley Moore, or Moore and Childs, and he came to us by way of Worth Furniture. He designed furniture and stuff like that, and he went on to design furniture for Ridgeway and clocks. And he was one heck of a designer. He knew the market. He knew everything, and he's missed in the design business. We also worked with a designer out of Hickory, North Carolina, called Dave Zaccaroli. He had a new look, and he was very successful. And I didn't get the chance to work with him long, but I also worked with a designer called Leonard Eisen. And he's still living, but he doesn't know where he is, and bless his heart. And then through him, 50 years ago, I got to meet a designer, Jeff Blasey. Jeff, 50 years ago was when I first met Jeff, maybe longer, I don't know. But Jeff still lives in Hurt, Virginia. If you're familiar with Hurt, the old 29 used to go across the bridge. There was an old mill there. The mill is where he lives. That's his place. And he still designs furniture today. I don't think very good because you don't sell much, do you? But we always had great designers. Get to the salespeople. Saul Pearl, I mentioned. Bill Ashton was our California rep. He was prim and proper, had hair like you, no hair. Sid Winter was our representative in Los Angeles. Ted Weinberg, he was up in Minneapolis. And Ted Weinberg was a classmate of Bob Dylan. And Bob Dylan dropped out of school at his fraternity and went on to, am I going over my time? Sorry, I gotta go. No. Ted Weinberg's fraternity brother was Bob Dylan. And Bob Dylan came and announced to his brothers he's gonna go on the road. Can any of you give me any money? So Ted Weinberg gave him $25, and I think Bob Dylan still remembers him. But a young lady by the name of Missy Bruber worked with Ted Weinberg and became the rep up there, and she was top notch. And then we had Jim Gallion, who was our Virginia rep, another gentleman. Wilson Wallace, he could have been a preacher, and probably was a preacher, but he handled the Carolinas. Fred Haas, Philadelphia. Bill Clary was Atlanta. Jack Kerner, oh my God. He could sell he could sell an air conditioning to it. I don't know. That's one Eskimo, but he was the greatest person. We had a guy named Larry Myler who came and replaced me in St. Louis. Floyd Spees. And Eileen Spellman. Eileen Spellman was the sales rep we had down in Florida. Unfortunately, she just passed away the other day. And then Sonny Cassidy. Don't clap. Don't clap. He joined the company in 1972 as a rep and
Working in the warehouse.
worked in the warehouse. That's better than selling encyclopedias, wasn't it?
Yep.
We hired him off the streets to sell encyclopedias, and he worked in the warehouse and got a little training, and then we put him on the road in Indianapolis.
I gotta tell you the story. I'm loading boxcars. Will's father, Jim Pearl, came down and they said, "You think you can sell, big guy?" And I'm like, "Well, yeah, well, when I used to sell underwear at J.C. Penney, I can sell." So, gave me a job in traveling to Indiana.
We sold women's underwear at J.C. Penney. We worked in the men's department. Never a dull moment. But we had such a good sales force. We had such good sales meetings in High Point. Don Jacobs. We had a lady. Who was the lady who was in charge of the calling out people, calling the reps? But anyway, I could mimic her voice. I'd get on the phone, and he'd be in another booth because he had another line, and I'd call him up and say, "Don, you've got somebody down you need to see." And he'd come down. "You called me?" "No, I didn't." "Yes, you did." "No, you didn't." He'd go back up. But we had a good time. Where am I now? Office workers. Sam Adams, you're a plant, but factory worker was a plant. And we had Mike Gallagher was in charge of the plant. Lee Houston was a plant manager, vice president of manufacturing. We had a gentleman by the name of Pee Wee Harris, who was, and he was quite a gentleman. You couldn't understand him. He was from West Virginia, wasn't he? I mean, he talked like he had marbles in his mouth. One time he went to this party, or he rode by this party out going to Spencer, and I think it was the Boxer. He had the house out there, and he said, "Boy, I rode by there, Will. I've never seen so many Cadillacs and Lincolns in all my life." He was a good man. I think you know. Howard Cole, Al Johnson, Charlie Pogger was in purchasing for a while. Tommy Root was our clock man. He was not only our clock man. He set up clocks. He repaired clocks. He was everything. Some of the key office workers up in the office building were Dick Pierce, who was vice president of sales, and I worked with him. He was a good man. He and the Longhaven car came up with a booklet that we sent out to all our dealers called We Do More to Help You Sell. I didn't put it up there because you couldn't read it, but anyway, it was a booklet that had everything you needed to know. Catalog, pricing, copies of national ads, consumer ads, newspaper slicks. We did everything for the dealer but sell the clocks. All they had to do was put a clock on the floor. Everything was done for them. Isn't that right? And then Dick Pierce was a good man, but behind every good man is a good woman, and that was Jackie Moore, who was. We lost Jackie the other day. She was my dad's secretary. There was Margaret Davis. She ran that place. She was in charge of customer service, quality control, everything. Linda Hamby worked at the front desk of the office. Betty Starr was my secretary. Wanda Barrow was customer service. Curtis Ingram was our treasurer for many, many years. And I contend he had the hardest job because he had to put up not only with dealers that had bad credit, but he had to put up with salesmen that wanted the commission. Harold Martin was quite a traffic man. We lost our traffic manager tragically to a heart attack years before him. And Harold came on and he did a wonderful job. And he left Ridgeway and went to work for Food Line down in Salisbury and got them in order, and he retired a multimillionaire. He set up their logistics and transportation system. And
Will, would you ask how many in the audience work there to raise their
I haven't gotten to that yet.
To raise, okay.
Come on, I'll get there. Wendy Isley was there. She was a relative. She was Curtis Ingram's secretary. Dave Gleesman and Noel Ward worked for us. Those are just a few.
Hemorrhoid man.
Huh?
Hemorrhoid man.
Yeah. I'd like to know, like Virginia said, how many people here were employees of Ridgeway Clock? Would you please stand? If you can stand. Well, we got two here.
Oh, the war was here.
Sam and I we were in rehabilitation together. I had a stent put in, and I had to do some rehabilitation.
Did you quit? I'm still going.
Quit. Yeah, you have those girls over, aren't you? But anyway, that about wraps up what I've got, except sounds like I was working forever, but I don't think so. I was with Ridgeway for 14 years, and worked for the greatest man in the world.
Tell them about the clock that's in the museum.
Oh yeah, I donated the clock to the museum, and this was unusual because it was the original sample, and it was one that was used originally to give to the race of champion, or the winner of the race. The difference between that clock downstairs and what it was today was one different detail. It had a different finial on downstairs. The designer came in and said, that's not right. So if you have a choice of working with a designer or not working with a designer, work with a designer. Because a 16th of an inch will make all the difference in the world. Are there any questions? I'll try to recognize who's asking and answer them. All right, Sam.
Your dad would have a meeting, and when we walked in, he was doing push-ups on that wheelchair. We knew it was going to be a bad meeting.
He had a board that used to slide from his wheelchair to his car. I've still got it hanging in my kitchen. Anybody else? I'm sure. Rebecca, I'm sure you got a question.
I just love me some Will Brown.
Well, the mature, the good old days. The good old days.
We thank Jim Frith and his dad, Frith Construction, and Jay Frith, they built most of our expansions, and yes, Jim?
My father, your father were best friends. And when they go to, if you read Factory Man, they went to the legendary gin rummy games on the weekend. My dad always picked up his dad, took construction, built the ramp into their home where Will grew up.
And Jim now lives in that house.
I bought their old house. Who did I call? Will over and his family members to come tell me stories and show me the pet cemeteries and the secret closets. And then he gratefully volunteered blueprints of the home for the original one.
Yeah.
So we go back a long way. It's very
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah, I remember they used to go out to Boxwood Hunt Club to play gin rummy. And funny story, one time my dad was driving home and he was coming up Beach Nut Lane. I don't know if you know where it is. And he got pulled over by a policeman. And he said, "What the hell?" And the policeman came up and says, "Can I see your driver's license and registration?" And Dad knew the policeman in the car, but he didn't know this other guy. This is a rookie. And he says, "What are you doing? What's going on?" "Harry, just cooperate, just cooperate." "Can I see your license and registration?" "Here, hold my drink." Anyway.
I got another question for you. I've got the very first Yorktown ever produced, but how many of them were produced overall?
1,000. We made it easy. Made 1,000 of the expensive ones. Thank y'all so much.
Good job, Will.
Keep standing.
I used to ride in that wheelchair when I was
That's right.
All right, well, thank you all for coming. Now, we're not done with Gravelies. If you would like more on the Gravelies, we have in this room the history of setting style. We have some pieces, one piece of furniture donated by Will Gravely. It was his grandmother's. We have items on loan that are from the Gravely family. So come check that out. Now, in November, Desmond Kendrick, who knows perhaps even more about the Gravelies than the Gravelies do. Desmond will give a program on the Gravelies and the tobacco plantation.
Okay.
Oh, well, we'll go over it then. Oh. And our membership year is renewing January 1st. You'll be getting those notices in the mail. And if you're not a member, please pick up a form and join us today. Pick up newsletters and enjoy them. And we ask, if you can, leave something in our donation box. That is what helps us pay the bills. Thank you very much. Did I give the wrong one? Oh, thank you.
Good to see you again, buddy.